in real estate and business loans in the city of Philadelphia. He has extensive banking experience in Jamaica and the United States and has worked for premier financial institutions in both countries. Mr. Chaplin is co-owner of New York-based Heartbeat Communications, which focuses on regional media and investment. Heartbeat manages several brands, including Carib PR, News Americas Now, and Invest Caribbean Now. He's a member of the Mayor's Commission on African and Caribbean Immigrant Affairs for the City of Philadelphia and served on the transition team of Mayor Jim Kenney on the Immigration and Multicultural Affairs Committee. Please join me in welcoming today's speaker, Christopher Chaplin. So let me, as you're unmuting yourself, we have about 25 minutes for your presentation and however much you want to devote to question and answer after that.
Thank you, Dan. I won't be speaking for anywhere close to 25 minutes. First off, let me just extend congratulations to Joe and Joan. My father early on taught me and my sister the importance of service. So really, you know, I have seen people talk about capitalism being the core of America, and I just don't believe that's true. I think it's service. Americans are so service-oriented, and so congratulations and a job well done to you, Joe and Joan. President Jay Penny, President-elect Alexander Snyman, board members, friends. Firstly, I just want to recognize the president of the Consul Association of Philadelphia, Peter Longstreth, who has done a phenomenal job. I serve with them on the executive committee. And for those that don't know, the Consular Corps Association of Philadelphia is the longest, the oldest consular corps in the United States. So Peter, welcome and thank you for joining us. First, I would like to just say thank you for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to have a conversation with you. As a former Kiwanian myself, I must recognize Rotary for being the oldest service club in the world, or so I'm reliably informed. Due recognition must be given to your club for your groundbreaking work in establishing Rotary clubs in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland, and Camden, New Jersey. I was pleasantly surprised to learn that your club has been giving service for over 100 years, a very long history of service indeed. I must say that Rotary in Jamaica is known for truly outstanding service, and many of my close friends are either past presidents like Emile Finley and Ryan Peralta, or past assistant governors like Dennis Chung. So your work transcends time, space, and culture. My remarks today will be primarily on our consulate's work during the pandemic, but if you have questions about PIDC, please do not hesitate to ask. Our consulate's work here in Philadelphia is to represent Jamaicans in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, and to represent the country of Jamaica in this area. Our work can be divided into two broad areas: consular activities, for example, passports, immigration, and generally representing our countrymen, and trade and investment, which is the second area. I was officially appointed in April 2019, and my thinking at that point was that most of my time would be spent on trade and investment, given my financial services and business ownership backgrounds. Well, as poet Robert Burns said, best laid schemes of mice and men gang after a glay. Over the past year, our consulate has had to pivot in significant ways. When our airports closed in Jamaica last year as a response to the spread of the pandemic, hundreds of Jamaicans were left stranded here in the United States for several months, many without means of support. College students, farm workers, hotel workers, vacationers. Working with our consulate in New York, headed by Consul General Alcian Roach Wilson, and our embassy in Washington, headed by Ambassador Audrey Marks, we provided much needed support. Here in Pennsylvania, our consulate led a group of volunteers and we found accommodation and provided food, supplies, and medical assistance to stranded Jamaicans. Over the past year, our work has expanded to include responding to requests about travel protocols in Jamaica. And I'll tell you a quick story. Maybe about 2 months ago, I received a frantic call late one Friday from a mother whose daughter was scheduled to get married in Jamaica within 2 weeks. Unfortunately, her son-in-law to be was thinking about calling off the wedding because, as you may recall, the US government had instituted a new measure where travelers coming back into the United States had to have a COVID test within 72 hours of departure back to the US. And she had spent a whole day trying to find a place for them to do the test and couldn't do so. And so I calmed her down. A wedding is a serious thing, and we're talking about a wedding party of over 23 to 25 people. And I got on the old Rolodex and called the tourist board and called a number of places, and eventually found out that the hotel and the government was putting into place the testing mechanisms, the testing process, so that they could come back when they were ready. And so that's a type of call I might get from Americans, from other people. And so far, we have managed to be able to handle the challenges of operating our consulate during a time of a global pandemic. We have been able to do this through the support of our community and various stakeholders. But I have to be honest, there is one area in which we have mightily struggled. And this is an area of spousal abuse of women, which appears to have generally escalated during this pandemic. And while the issue is the increase has been general across the United States, the issue has been particularly challenging for immigrant women, as there is great fear in reporting the abuse due to their immigration status and lack of knowledge of the American legal and support systems. Over the past year, our consulate has had several cases where we coordinated providing assistance to Jamaican women who had been the victims of domestic violence. There is some good news in the fact that Philadelphia does have a strong network of organizations committed to assisting abused women, and their assistance has been invaluable. However, in some instances, this support is either for a specific period of time or maybe just for native-born or American women or women with green cards. And so we have situations right now where we're scrambling to provide support. This support has included legal and medical help as well as short-term accommodation. The legal help and medical help has been supported by others, but we are having a tough time with respect to accommodation and safe houses. And I stress safe houses because it's easy. We could perhaps try to find a specific accommodation, but we have to have an environment where very few people know where these women are. I must commend you, Rotary Club of Philadelphia, on your Women in Transition Therapeutic Services Program investment. Our Caribbean and African communities in Philadelphia are in need of assistance in terms of accommodation and short-term safe houses for immigrant women from the Caribbean and Africa. And hopefully that's a conversation I may have either with your club or with any of you at any time. Look forward to it. Please accept my thanks for this invitation and time you've spent listening. Perhaps we can work together on specific projects in the future, especially in an era of assisting Caribbean and African immigrant women. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christopher. So we'll certainly open up the floor now. We have several minutes if you have questions that you'd like to pose. Kelly?
Thank you. That was fascinating. I didn't know that about the rise in perhaps domestic violence among women, especially Jamaican immigrant women during the pandemic. What would you say before the pandemic, some of your the consulate's greatest challenges have been?
Right, and so I was appointed in April 2019, and I think the challenge up to that point was to make sure we got in front of state and city officials and in potential investors, because Jamaica has been experiencing a strong economic growth. And so, in fact, our stock market for 1 or 2 years was rated the best performing stock market in the world. And so, up to the start of the pandemic, our focus, our challenge was always to get investors into the US. So having said that, the business processing outsourcing industry in Jamaica has just been remarkable. And that's basically call centers. One of the sort of benefits, so to speak, of British colonial presence, despite many drawbacks, was the fact that we speak English. And so that, and with the telecommunications infrastructure in Jamaica, we were able to expand our business processing, our call center operations very significantly. They were hiring a lot of people. And so my primary challenge to that point was securing deals for the country of Jamaica. And obviously that's changed.
Sandy?
So right now, when a Jamaican woman has trouble being abused, they go to the Women in Transition, or where else are they going to for help right now?
Right. So there are, as I mentioned, Philadelphia, to our credit here, has a pretty solid infrastructure. So there's the Women's Against Abuse, and they operate several shelters. There are a number of other organizations that help women generally. But we do have a couple of organizations that are focused on the African and Caribbean community. There is AFRICOM. We've been able to get some small amounts of funding through them for women who are facing these issues. There is OFANA, which in one case right now, they've set up medical assistance for a young lady. It really tears my heart apart. She's 22, married, faced physical abuse, left, living in a shelter, and she's pregnant. She's due in July. And so they were able to set up medical assistance for her. And I know she was really freaking out maybe a month or two ago, but once we started helping her and talking to her, she's in a much better place. I know I have 2 sons, 25, 23, and I can't imagine a 22-year-old young lady and what she's going through. And so you do have these organizations. I know at our consulate, I'll pick up the phone if we need funding for a specific personnel. I'll call 20 people and say, look, write a check. And so we don't have an account, but we're able to work through other local organizations. So far, we've been able to pull it off. I, however, am concerned that going into the remainder of this year, depending on how long this pandemic lasts, that we may face some additional issues. But so far, so good, so to speak.
So just for your knowledge, I know the Weiss Wellness Center in the Bach building just opened up for immigrants, refugees, for medical care that's free. Mm-hmm. And just to put it out there, it's just opened this April. Yeah.
Right. I just wrote it down, so I will call them, even if it's not needed right now. It's good to understand.
Mm-hmm. If people need medical care, there are really excellent doctors opening there and giving free healthcare.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's good info.
Just wanted to mention that we have a very good relationship with the Rotary Club of Southwest Philadelphia, where there is a very large African community. And we've partnered with them in the past for different projects. And I'm wondering if we can somehow work with them to help in this situation. We will work internally to see what we can come up with and maybe contact you further down the road.
Joan, I would really appreciate that. That's thoughtful. And what I'll do is I'll put my cell number in the chat room. And I mean, look, anybody, I'm pretty open. Feel free to call me at any time. I'm glad to take calls.
Hey, Christopher, it's Bill Thomas here. Thanks for the presentation this morning. I have been to Jamaica many, many times with Western Union and very involved with the Grace Kennedy organization. And I still have a lot of contacts back at Western Union. I think there might be an opportunity to look at that organization, given their business interests in Jamaica, and find ways to provide funding.
No, I'd appreciate that, Bill. And I dropped my number in the chat. I'd love to talk to you about it, to get somebody in Western Union. And I'll be honest with you, the Grace Kennedy is a large conglomerate, and they tend to be focused on business operations. So when we have, and to be transparent, the head of Grace Kennedy is a schoolmate of mine, so I know him pretty well. But if we have certain things, we do ask them, as it pertains to the community, and they tend to look at the big picture. But if you have somebody in Western Union, I'd be glad to have that conversation.
Sure, I'll have that with you.
Okay.
Kelly?
Hi, can I ask another question? I confess to not knowing about COVID rates in Jamaica. I guess I know I could look this up, but could you talk a little bit about the COVID situation there as compared to other Caribbean countries?
Right. So the short answer is not good. When COVID first hit, and obviously I have to watch what I say while being truthful, but when COVID first hit, the government took very serious steps. The airport closed down, curfews, et cetera, to make sure the pandemic didn't spread, and they worked. I think the WHO recognized Jamaica as one of the better performance in terms of management of of COVID. Unfortunately, it didn't last. We managed it for, I would say, for a good 6 to 8 months. And whether and I can't speak to the reasons why, but it may have been just people got fatigued. And so, parties started being held, people were hanging out. And the consequence of that is now we're facing pretty serious situation. It has really gotten a bit out of hand, and our hospital capacity is under strain. We in the early days, we evened out the curve, and just fatigue and discipline, call it what you will, we didn't handle it very well. And so last week, our government instituted pretty serious curfews. We've gotten vaccines from India. We're getting some more from other countries. And so I expect that the situation will reverse. Hopefully, in fact, I had a very close friend who passed away yesterday from COVID in Jamaica. And so I'm hoping that our country, maintains some level of discipline, because the government is taking the appropriate steps, in my opinion. The question is, are people following the protocols? And hopefully the curfews and the emergencies, will reverse the trend that started maybe back in, I would say, December, of increased cases. So I'm hopeful, but it's not, at this particular moment, it's not good. And having said that, the interesting thing is that the tourist sector appears to be fine, because we established something called the Resilient Corridor, which extends from the airport in Montego Bay across the North Coast, which is where most tourists go. And so that has actually worked, because it's I'm not going to say it's airtight, but it's called a Resilient Corridor for a reason. But unfortunately, where most people live, that's not true. It has gotten a bit out of hand.
Sorry to hear that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Hi.
Yes, Jeff?
Hi, Christopher. I was actually curious about Jamaican-owned businesses in the city. I support some of the Jamaican restaurants, but I was just curious about the state of that and how they're doing during the pandemic.
Yes, thank you. In fact, I initially, and obviously if you want good Jamaican food, there are a number of restaurants. My personal favorite is 40th Street Grill. I go there often, I take friends there. I'm still to take Peter Longstreth, but that's for another time. The restaurants were struggling, and so I actually instituted a program in October where we had Caribbean Restaurant Month. And I called it Taste the Islands Philly, and we were on Fox News, and to some extent, I think it helped. But I know the restaurants are continuing to struggle. I think some pivoted. I know there's Ron's Caribbean up on Broad Street did pivot, and they did a lot of online ordering. But I think they're still struggling. I know a group is putting together a Caribbean restaurant week next month. I'm sorry, this month starts on Saturday. And so, you know, hopefully we're trying to support these restaurants as much as we can. The other Jamaican businesses that I'm aware of, we have a Jamaica Trade Council. I think they're doing as well as anybody is. Some are up, some are down. I can tell you my other job, or my primary job, is with PIDC, and I'm responsible for all the loans that PIDC make. That's my team.
Thank you. I got it.
Yes. And so, you know, a number of our clients are gone through struggle, but the good thing is that the city and the state put in place programs where, you know, and at the federal level, you have PPP, at the city level, we have CHIRPS, and all these programs, as well as we extended forbearance for a lot of our clients. And it's not as bad. I actually presented a report on our overall risk rating to our loan committee this morning, and we're not doing that badly. I can tell you this, you know, if you're going to invest in a business, it's invest in a pizza business, because our pizza companies, their revenues jumped. And so that's a good business to look at if you're going to do a business during a pandemic, pizza. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, thank you, Christopher. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate the invitation, and I'd love to, whenever you open up again and we're back in person, I'd love to come over and, you know, hang out with you guys a bit. I know that was planned last year before the pandemic, but count me in to come and hang out. I'll even bring the jerk chicken if you're okay with that.
Well, that would be great. We'd love to have you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dan.
So rather than present you with a Rotary mug, we've abandoned that process because we find that too many of them make their way to family garage sales eventually, and have in its place adopted what we think is a more meaningful gesture of appreciation for you, for your presentation today. So what this club is going to do in appreciation for your service to us today is to inoculate or fund the inoculation of 6 people in the Polio Plus campaign to eradicate polio worldwide. We're doing that in your name, and we do that as our measure and our expression of appreciation to you.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate the gesture, and if you could, you know, if you have control over where they get inoculated, Caribbean might be helpful, or Africa, either one.
Thank you.
But thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.